Hey guys, so let's talk about the back of your postcard. Not only are you going to be designing the front that has like the big word with all of the different pictures inside of it, but you're also going to be designing the back where the note would actually be written to the person, right? So hopefully some of you have sent a postcard before, but if not, I'm going to explain to you how that works right now. So, first thing that you need to make sure of is that your finished design needs to be more than what we just did together. So, first thing is that your postcard needs to have more on it than what we just did for the demo. So, for example, if your postcard is looking like the space postcard that we did, where you just have letters with pictures inside of them and a hollow glow around it, it's not enough. Okay, so you need to show me that you understand how to use all of those tools that we've learned so far in Photoshop to make this something that's exciting. So, on my space example here, you can see that I have made it look kind of 3D. It's not the exact 3D that I made the other video about. I also have a tagline here. It says, "Wishing we were in space, NASA, Kennedy Space Center." So there's like 4 different places where there's words. There's a border around it that makes it look kind of like a cartoon space agey border. There's a cutout over here of like a rocket. There's also a texture overlay. So I put a picture of a texture that would look like paper on top of all of my layers and set it to multiply so that I could still see everything underneath, but it would have a texture, right? So there's a lot that went into this one that is not just what we did in the demo. So, that being said, the next thing you're going to do is design the back. So, here are some examples of some real life postcards that people sent. So, you can see that this one just has something all over the back of it. But the other 3 have a line down the center, and one side is for the address, and the other side is for their note, right? So at the top, it'll typically say something like this one says postcard, this one says YMCA, this one says like a little blurb about Mount Rainier. This one you can't really read because a person wrote over it. But this is what you're going to be designing, right? You're going to be designing what the middle part is like. Is it a bunch of dots? Is it going to be a design that has to do with your location? Is it going to be words? Like, what's the middle part that's going to separate the address from the note? Maybe you also want to include like a little blurb about whatever it is that you made the front of the postcard about. And then we're also going to make it look like it has a stamp on it and it's ready to go to the post office. So all of these, you can see there's a little stamp right here. And then there's also an additional stamp on top of it. So if you've never sent a postcard before, this is how it works. You get the piece of paper, you write somebody's address, you write the note that you want to tell them about how beautiful the place is that you're visiting, right? And then you put a stamp on it that is you saying that you've paid the post office to deliver your postcard. And then when the post office gets that postcard, they stamp it again to say that they've processed it, that it's like on its way to wherever the address is, right? So here's some more examples that are blank. This is more like what I'm expecting from you. So the lettering at the top of the postcard should reflect the same vibe, the same aesthetic as the front of your postcard. So this one is like small and really like dark on the inside of it. This one takes up a lot of space and is really like has a lot of filigree around it. Like it looks fancy. This one's kind of more plain and it has like a space where they want somebody to put their stamp. This one over here has a design with a lady. So that probably has something to do with the front of that postcard, right? So if you look down here, this one also has like a nautical star. So there are lots of things that you can add to your postcards to make the back of it look just as exciting as the front, right? So just remember that the right side needs to have the address and the stamp, and the left side is where somebody would write their note. So here's my example. So this is the example of the finished front that I was just talking about, where I made all of it entirely in Photoshop. This is the example that I did for the back, right? So if I come down here to my Illustrator file, this is what that Illustrator file looks like right now, right? So instead of doing just dots in the center, I made a design with like Saturn, and it's supposed to be like, retro, like space design, right? I just did some lines over here for the address. And then for Postcard, I made sure to pick a font that was kind of like space age. And at the bottom, I put like a little blurb about NASA because that's what the front of my postcard says, right? So this is kind of what your Illustrator design is going to look like. It's not going to be super complicated, but you have a lot more ability to manipulate line work in Illustrator. So you're going to design the back of it in Illustrator, and then you're going to take that into Photoshop and you're going to make it look like it's actually the back of a postcard, right? So here's my example of what I'm looking for the finished version. You can see my design here with all of my little NASA blurb and where the address goes, but I also added other things, right? So I added this particular stamp. So I just searched for an image of a space stamp, and I removed the background so that I could put it on top of my postcard. I also looked for the kind of stamp that the post office would use to say that it's been processed. So that's this guy right here. I used one of those and got rid of the background and put it over here. And then this picture is what I initially used for the back of my postcard. You can use whatever you want to use for the back of it. As long as it looks like it's paper and it's the right dimensions, right? So remember, the front of our postcard is 5x7. So the back of our postcard should reflect the same size because it's the same thing, just the back of it. Okay. So this is what it should all look like when you're done. The front of it, the back of it, they should have similar tones in paper. So like the paper that I used for the front of this postcard has that same like yellowish, like it's aging sort of a deal as the back of it. And these are the two images that you're going to be turning in when you're done. So let's talk about how to get that image into Photoshop, just in case you've forgotten. So here's my Illustrator design. So I'm going to go ahead and just select everything that I made in Illustrator. And then I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to do Control C to copy that guy. And then I'm going to find my paper. So this is just the blank paper that I'm using as the back of my postcard. And I'm going to Control V to paste, and I want it to be a smart object, so I'll press OK. And then now I might need to like resize it a little bit. Something like that. You could also change the blend mode on this. So after I save that, I would go up here to the blend mode, maybe change that to multiply, so that way it looks like it's on the piece of paper. And then from here, I would do all the other fancy things that you know how to do in Photoshop to make it look like this guy, right? Now, if you want to have like a handwritten note on there, you can try to put some text in there, or if you want, but you don't have to. This is all that I'm requiring. Okay, so here are the list of requirements. These are all of the things that I just went over. Nest needs to be 5x7. You need a logo that represents the place that your postcard is advertising. You need a stamp, so you can either design a stamp or go find a picture of a stamp. You need to designate where the address needs to be written, a small blurb about the place the postcard is from, and any other additional details that you think are going to make it look exciting, right? So remember, all of the photos that you're using need to be high quality. So do your best to find pictures maybe on these websites that will meet that requirement. All right, that's it. You should be completing this at the same time that we're doing screen printing. All right, good luck.